Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the truth about learning Chinese. So as most of you guys know, I started learning Chinese since I was in pre-K. I went to a dual language elementary and middle school, and there I got a solid foundation of Mandarin. Every day basically we had regular classes in English from 8:30 to 3, and then 3 to 5:30 we had Chinese time. During those 2.5 hours we would have all our classes in Chinese and a time for us to really just learn the language. So I started doing that when I was about 4 years old, and I absolutely hated it. I remember like throwing a tantrum every single day on the way to school, crying to my mom, like, why do I have to learn Chinese? I'm an American, I live in the US. I just didn't understand why I had to learn Chinese, especially since I saw no practical use of it. Just like, in America, people don't really need Chinese. So I really didn't like it. But as I got older, I realized the value of knowing another language. I was born in China, so it's like learning my mother tongue. So growing up learning Chinese has always been like a lifelong struggle. I'm still learning the language today, and I keep improving. Obviously, I've gone a long way since when I began. Learning Chinese for me has not only been a lifelong struggle. Learning Chinese for me has been particularly hard because it has a lot to do with my identity being a Chinese American, and when I was younger I totally rejected my Chinese heritage. I didn't want anything to do with being Chinese, and I thought I wasn't Chinese. When people first meet me, they kind of assume already that I speak a Chinese dialect at home, and then when I do talk in Mandarin, they're like, oh, well, you probably are, this level because you speak it at home, or some variation of that. A lot of times when people meet me, my identity can be confusing because I do speak Mandarin, and like pretty well. I have like Chinese sisters as well, but like I'm adopted and my mom's white, so like everything is just confusing to people. Learning Chinese for me, even though it sounds so great, like, oh, a Chinese adoptee who knows her own language and like pretty well too, that sounds like amazing. Yes, but to be honest, I'm not to the level that I would like to be, especially since I started learning since I was 4 years old. Learning Chinese definitely brings out a lot of insecurities of mine, since I have certain expectations for myself, especially since I've been learning since I was young, and other people also have certain expectations for me since I have a Chinese face. I know I shouldn't let it get to me, but it is something that does. It brings out insecurities because I'm not as great as I think I am. Over the summer, as you guys know, I went to Princeton and Beijing, that program, and it was like an intense, immersive summer program. We were only allowed to speak and communicate using Mandarin for the entirety of the program. That was great and all, and it sounds great, and I was able to do it, but it really affected me emotionally. Since we were only allowed to speak in Chinese, there were a lot of different things that occurred. For example, it was a lot harder for me to make friends, like not just surface friends, but like actual friendships, because we were only able to speak in Chinese, and there are a lot of things that I can't really express myself using just Mandarin, and also I'm kind of shy, or kind of a little more hesitant when it comes to speaking Mandarin because I'm not as confident speaking just Mandarin. Also, I was put in the regular 3rd grade. Came to the program with me from my college. They were all in different levels, like higher than me, and I was just like, why am I the lowest level? And I just felt bad about that. Most of the people in my grade were like white, because they had a heritage track which was 3.5, and I didn't make it into that, but that's where all like the Asians were. So basically, yeah, the people in my grade or my level were basically white. I had some Asians, but like maybe 10 Asians out of a whole group of 60. I have been learning Chinese since I was young, and some of these people have only been learning Chinese for like 3 years, and they were like my level, so it just brought a lot of insecurities of mine, since I thought maybe I wasn't learning as well. Learning Chinese for me hasn't always been as natural as I would like it to be, which is weird because on the outside it seems like I'm pretty good, and like growing up all my Chinese teachers said I was like good at it and whatever, my pronunciation was good. But at the same time, for me, it takes a little more time to just switch the flip like that. It's like I'm speaking in English, thinking English, and then like, oh, now it's the time to speak Chinese. Sometimes it takes me a little while to kind of get in that mindset until where I'm comfortable and I can speak just naturally. Like, it really depends. Sometimes it can be really quick, and sometimes it takes a little while. And I'm not sure if the blocks that I get when I'm like trying to speak Chinese or when I'm learning Chinese is because if it's like kind of like a mental thing, like a mentality type of thing, and I'm like, oh, I always think like, oh, I'm bad at Chinese, or oh, this is really hard for me, you know, if that is kind of blocking me, or if something really is like, you know, my insecurities. Sure though, learning Chinese has definitely highlighted some insecurities of mine. Inconfident in some ways because I do feel like I should be a higher level than I am. But at the same time, learning Chinese and being bilingual has shaped my identity in such a tremendous way that if I didn't know the language, I'd be a completely different person. And I'm so thankful that I do know Chinese. It opened a world of culture to me, supposedly my culture, but also just being more worldly and being able to travel. It really does open up doors for you when you do travel to a country that speaks your target language. You can communicate with the people and you see the practicality of it. It's like so eye-opening because you can read and write, and it's not just in a classroom setting. You know, it's very, very different to be learning Chinese in my college in New York than opposed to actually being in China and speaking with the people and ordering food and all of that. Language definitely is a skill that is very important, and I think that it really benefits people to know at least another language. But also, learning Chinese specifically for me, it does hit closer to home because I was born in China and I am Chinese. It goes both ways. It's like it opened so many doors for me, and it allowed me to explore and get to know my culture and my mother language a lot more, but at the same time it did give me a lot of brought out a lot of insecurities of mine, that like, oh, I'm not good enough, this should have been my first language but it's not, like I'm really slow, all these things, like, oh, I'm not a real Asian, or my Chinese sucks, stuff like that. And even to this day I have those insecurities and kind of like mental blocks when it comes to advancing in the language. I can speak conversationally with people, but at the same time sometimes I'm just like, oh, I forgot how to say something as simple as, I don't know, like I'm trying to think of something real quick. Like, it just, I know a lot of like the words and phrases, but when it comes to speaking in sentences, sometimes I forget, or something like that. It's weird because I know it. It's just I forget during that time. A love-hate relationship. I definitely love that I know the language and I'm learning it, and it's one of my majors, and it opened so many opportunities for me, and it allowed me to be closer to my culture. But at the same time, it has highlighted, you know, the wounds of like being adopted and being abandoned as a baby from China. And this language and culture wasn't just given down to me from like my biological parents or whatever. It's something that I had to actively get, and I still kind of feel like I'm an outsider. To like take it back, give me the culture and language, sometimes I still feel like there is a distance, and there probably will always be a distance, which isn't a bad thing though. So that is why my learning Chinese has definitely allowed me to become more mature and kind of understand who I am in a way deeper level, because I'm not just Chinese, I'm not just American, but I am Chinese American, and that is something that I really emphasize a lot. Introducing myself for my cultural identity, either Asian American or Chinese American, because those two are like the two things that can't be separated. I have my Asian side, my Chinese side, and then I also have my American side, and they're together. You can't really separate them. I'm not just Chinese, I'm not just American. And that I think has really come with learning Chinese, especially as a Chinese adoptee. But it has definitely made me a stronger person. I'm also grateful for that. Honestly, I really enjoy learning the language. I'm going to continue with it. I want to get my degree. This has just opened so many doors for me and really shaped me as a person. Proud to say now that I am Chinese American and I am bilingual. So thank you guys for watching, just kind of like a video, me talking about the truth about learning Chinese. Take what you can from it, whatever resonates, and if you have any questions about learning Chinese or anything like that, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!